Okay, you're 80 years old and you have the chance to relive your life going backwards. So 79, 78, 77, all the way back to when you were born. What items or events or things would you like to have accomplished or taken part in during your lifetime? That way you could experience them again as your age comes down from 80 back to 0, right? What things would you want to relive? So think about firsthand and pause it right after this. What items do I want to have done by 80 years old that would be good enough that I'd want to relive those experiences as I'm aging backwards? So pause it right here and think about that for a second. Okay, now that you're back and you've written down a couple of them, let's say 5. Most people are probably still watching, and that's okay. If those are the things that you'd want to do in reverse order, well, then just that's your new vision for your life. If they're good enough that you'd want to relive them, well, imagine that you're 80 years old right now and you get to start doing the first things on that list that are on the lower side of the age spectrum. You get what I mean, right? So what does that look like for me? Well, when I'm 80 years old, I think from that point forward, like let's say I was 80 years old and I lived till 100. This is like a separate question of how I'd want to design my life. I want something that's going to be useful from that point forward. So I want all of my life to culminate to be useful from 80 to 100, right? Because like most of your life, you can bear a lot of the things that are thrown your way, a lot of the challenges, because you're young and you're not decaying yet. When you're 80 years old, your friends are starting to die and your health is starting to decline and people don't care about you or interact with you as much because you're starting to smell a little bit and you also are losing your hearing, right? That's when you need something that really is valuable. And I think the most valuable thing that you can have when you're 80 years old, one would be friends, and family, but 2 would be some killer stories to tell. Always being the one that has an interesting story. People come in and they want to sit with grandpa at Thanksgiving dinner to hear what he's got to say because he's got some really interesting stuff, right? So if that's the case, then I need to come up with all these really great stories. Not come up with, but actually go out and do all these really great things before I turn 80. Okay, so now that we've got that clarified, what things would I want to have done by 80 years old that I could relive the experience as I age backwards? That's the question. I'd want to have visited every country in the world because if I'm going to age backwards and I get to relive the experience, I'd want to see all of these different countries, the beauty that this world has to offer once again for the first time. Could you imagine that? This is a cool perspective. If you got to relive your life, how many things would you try for the first time just so that you get to re-experience the nostalgia or the novelty, that's the word I'm looking for, of this new experience as you're aging backwards? Let me say that one more time. If you were living your life backwards, how many things would you have tried? Like if you knew that you're going to be able to live your life backwards so that you could experience that sense of novelty more often as you age backwards. You see what I mean? If you had the knowledge that you would experience it again, you would want to have more, you would want to try more things for the first time so that you could have that novelty experience. And right now, it's hard to comprehend that because you haven't tried all these new things. But once you do it a couple times, for example, like traveling somewhere and trying a different type of food, right? And that's a given one. But another one would be like taking a girl out on a date for the first time. That's like a novel experience that's a little bit nerve-wracking, but then, I'd kill to do that, especially the first date with my wife. I would kill to do that over and over because you don't know in the moment, but if you're reliving that experience, it'd be wild, I'd want to have a lot of physical endeavors. I know that that's a big one for me. That's why I'm running a marathon in all 50 states next summer or year. I'd want something every year of my life. And that's something I talked about a couple days ago. But I'd want to be able to recap. Like, if someone asked me to lay out the timeline of my life, I could give them one event from every single year that kind of led them to understand who I was fully, just from this one event every single year. So, like, let's say I'm 22, turning 22 in a couple of weeks. So from age 20 to age 80, there's 60 things. Well, if we sat down for an hour, I could tell you a 1-minute blurb on every year of my life from age 20 to age 60, and you'd be blown away. The stories that I'd tell, you would be like almost taken aback by how much I had done in a lifetime. That's what I want my life to be set up like. And if I got to relive those experiences, if there were great stories to tell, that means that there were incredible moments to live in. So if I got to relive those moments going backwards, that would be awesome, What else? I'd want to talk to a lot of people, meet a lot of great people for the first time, and have some incredible conversations. I think we're made for connection, right? I don't even think that. I know that. I know that humans are made for connection. We're made for conversation. We're made to share stories, information, and I want to have some really high level conversations that stretch my way of thinking and open my mind from that point forward, because then I could go backwards and really understand, like, wow, like in hindsight, because, technically I had already experienced the after effects of this worldview in reliving this experience. In hindsight, this conversation that I had was super valuable, priceless, right? Now imagine if I could say that more than once, 100 times in a lifetime. How many conversations could you have that are priceless? Well, the first thing is that you have to have some value to add to the conversation. So you have to be a knowledgeable person. And as well, they would have to be a knowledgeable person. And then you'd have to be good at interacting with them. So not just like talking over them or anything like that. Like, there's all these different things that go along with having a high quality conversation. But once you nail those skills down, now it's just a matter of doing it more often. So now you got to figure out, well, how am I going to do this more often? Maybe I start my own podcast, or maybe I just make it my life's wish to dedicate, my free time over the weekends to being a guest on other people's podcasts where I talk about my own career path or political experience or whatever it is. Yeah. That's another thing is, the whole thing of not wanting to have any regrets. One of the things that people usually regret that they didn't try or that they didn't do something because they felt that either people would, ow, that hurts so bad. Sorry. Either that people would think something bad of them or that they wouldn't want to look like the fool. At this point, I'm rambling a little bit, but I think it's a good perspective to take on if I were to set up my life so that I could relive it, all these experiences. I'd want to do some really incredible things during my lifetime, right? Now, the thing is, you don't get to relive it that we know of. Who knows? Once you die, you might be able to press rewind and watch through these things again. But you do get to live it once, which is just as good as reliving it, if not better, because you have the knowledge that this is the only time, right? So there's no nostalgia, but there's only novelty, you know? And on top of that, there's more value to the moments. If you don't relive them, if you know that this is it, then every single moment that happens, it's the one, you know? There's no turning back. So I think that's a question that you should really sit down and ask yourself is, if I was 80 years old, would I want to do what I'm about to do this year? And if that question is no, you got to change. It's got to be something different, you know? Because life is made of moments. A life full of moments like these, you know, good moments and fun times and great stories, is a life well lived. But a life full of moments that you wouldn't want to share, it's a terrible life. You got to make the change. And there's so much waiting for you on the other side. You just got to figure out, like, what does it look like, you know? If I could have it all in my life, what would it look like? And then just go towards it. Why not? 80 years will pass. You might as well pass those years doing something that you want to do. There's a cockroach or something crawling on my on the baseboards, so I'm gonna go kill that. But I'll talk to you tomorrow. Why not us?